Now, I didn't walk into this expecting it to be easy, but man, seriously, filming solo is tough. Now, when you're filming completely solo, there's nobody else there helping you with your exposure, no one making sure you're in frame, no one making sure that there's a continuity between all your shots. It's just all on you. And look, I'm still really new to this. I'm only 5 months in. And just recently I went out to shoot some B-roll footage and I was humbled and reminded of just how difficult shooting solo can really be. And so today I just thought it would be awesome to run through this footage, show you guys what worked, also go through my many errors, and then hopefully through my mistakes, I can help you improve your solo filmmaking journey. All right, let's get into it. Now, sometimes when you head out, everything just falls into place. Everything just happens naturally and it all just comes together perfectly. But on days like this here, it seems like no matter what you do, no matter where you point your lens, it just turns out looking like trash. So then you just end up with all this different footage, it's all over the place, no sense of story, and nothing to really do with it. But first, let's start with the good news, which is my composition. So we'll jump on and have a look. Now, for the most part, some of the compositions, they're not really that bad. I mean, over here on this shot, for example, you can see we've got some nice imagery from left and right, except for this little bit over here in the corner, which was really annoying me. But for the most part, because of my experience with landscape photography, I've always been used to setting up scenes, especially with wide lenses, and making sure I've got things in the foreground, in the middle, and the background that are of interest. So thankfully, I am just used to finding compositions within frames. But as you can see over in these shots here, although I've got some nice leading lines coming through here and here, I probably was sitting a little bit too close to the middle. I could have been maybe situated here a little bit more or over here on this third of the frame if I was using the grids more correctly. So it's not like it's all terrible, but there are some little things that I could have definitely improved that overall really adds to the story and just adds to the look of the scene. So composition is definitely the first thing that is extremely difficult when you're on your own, especially if you don't have a lot of experience with it, because there's no one there just making sure that everything looks good and makes sense. That wasn't really what I was necessarily struggling with here on this shoot, but what I did struggle with, which is my second point, is exposure. Now, if I come back over here to my original shot, you can see that the exposure here is not too bad, right? But once I move positions, look at the difference here in just the contrast and how flat this image now looks because I was way overexposed. Now, in the time that I was going from here to here was literally about 15 seconds. And I set these two shots up here to be in exactly the same exposure as this. Now to balance this, I was spinning my ND filter and just moving my f-stop back and forth like crazy just to try and get a continuous exposure. But every time I moved away from the camera and started walking away, the exposure was changing. And look, I had people in the way, I had cars trying to come up. This was a little driveway section here. So I had 3 goes at this and it changed so dramatically every single time. It was getting quite annoying. So just moving through these clips again, it's a little bit distracting because it's like every single clip has a different type of exposure. But as you're running through the clips here like this, it's enough for me to take me out of the story into what's happening because there's just way too much difference between all of these. Ugh. So obviously it's pretty damn hard to control the sun, and it's even probably harder to control other people. So really the best thing that we can do is just exercise a little bit of extra patience and also make sure that we just check as often as we can and as quickly as we can on camera what we just filmed. Because there can be a high chance, especially if you're in a high pressure situation, that maybe you missed your mark, maybe the light changed when you went from your camera 4 meters away over to your mark. Things can change. So do your best to make sure that you have what you need in camera before moving over to your next scene. All right, next up, let's talk white balance, because this is something I've struggled with on and off for a while. Now let's come back to this shot over here because I just think it's a really good example of where the color changes. Now, if you take notice of these doors here, they've got that nice reddish brown to them. But if I cut to the next scene, they look a lot more maroon looking. And if also you look up here at the cream, it changes from scene to scene. You see the difference here? Look at that. If I cut back to here, you see it differently again. And now also when I was trying to keep this continuity between the creams, coming over to this shot, I feel like I kind of got it, but you look at everything else in the scene, like look at my skin tones, you look at the reds and you compare it to this, it doesn't really match up. Now, I knew that I'd stuffed up a few of them because I realized that my white balance was sitting on something ridiculous. So I went back to try and change it. But what I didn't realize is that as the lighting was changing, it must have been changing the colors and what was bouncing off the different reflective surfaces. So I was sitting there thinking that I was getting some good stuff, but then I come back and looked at all these shifts and was like, what the hell? But like all of us, I was just like, I'll deal with it in post. But as I'm cutting between these two shots, there is just way too much variance for me and for my liking. The color shift is just way too much. And even though they're both graded and colored in this exactly the same way so you guys can see, there's just too much difference. So a good takeaway from this when you're filming solo is to set your white balance, make sure you know what you need, and then also ensure that every clip looks similar. So when you come back to grading, you're not just thinking you can fix it straight away, because you might just have a nasty surprise like this that's kind of unsavable. Okay, so now this next point is more gear related than what it is actually about skill. But when it comes to gear as a solo filmmaker, you have to be very picky because you don't want to be carrying around so much crap all the time, right? And so today I want to talk about my Flimsy tripod. Let's have a look. So now I've been using this $15 projector stand for Kmart as my main tripod with my camera. I know it's not ideal, but hey, it's been doing the job because I couldn't decide on what to buy when it comes to tripod because there is so many different tripods out there and a lot of them just look terrible and I don't want to waste my money on something that's going to be just as bad as this. But as an example, I'm going to roll you over to this clip right here. Now, as I play this, have a look at how much this is bouncing around. You can see that the wind is just moving this camera all over the place. It's almost uncontrollable. But it's not the only example I've got from this shoot. And so as I come over to this wide shot here, you can just see how much the camera again is moving around. As I had the camera right up at the end of the street, the wind was blowing up the end of the street. And as I was looking at it, it's going like this, but there's again, not much you can do. Look at that, crazy, crazy. All I can do is upgrade that tripod. And if anybody's got any suggestions, I'm all ears in the comments down below. Okay, so next up, what I want to talk about when filming solo is keeping continuity, making sure things flow from one scene to the next. Now, this really annoyed me with this shoot here in particular because I normally think I'm pretty good with this, but as I'm going to demonstrate for you guys here, it is super easy to forget. So obviously when you're filming footage, you're trying to get a little bit of a story across as you do. But when I got home and I put all this into DaVinci to edit, I realized just how many little things I wasn't keeping track of. Okay, now as you can see here, I'm sitting down, I'm talking on the phone, being a big dog, whatever. But then I come here, as I put my phone in my pocket, I put my hood up, pick up my bag, and then I start walking off the scene. Now going into this very next scene, have a look at this. Where's my hood? Where's my bag? And now guys, these little details matter so much more than what you can imagine because the viewer, when they're watching this, even if they don't realize that that's what's happening, they can just tell that something's not right. Something isn't adding up from this shot to this shot. And when we're trying to put a series of things together, a series of footage together, it's important that we have continuity there so it makes sense, right? And also another thing with the continuity I notice is here I'm standing hard up against this wall. As you can see, I'm leaning up against it. But when I come into this 70mm range here, I'm very far forward from it and I'm standing off on an angle. So again here, it doesn't make sense. I mean, maybe it suits the framing a bit more. Maybe it wasn't going to be a good enough shot if I was standing right up. I couldn't get these lines and I couldn't get some of the things that I wanted to capture. But as you can see, as you put this together, it doesn't really make a lot of sense because 1 minute I'm standing close, the next minute I'm standing far away. Which one is it? And that's the thing when you're filming solo, there's no one on set there telling you, hey, you picked up your bag last time. Hey, your hood's supposed to be on. Hey, you walked in that other direction last time. So there's a lot to think about, not just your gear, not just your white balance, not just your framing, but it's all the little things as well that you're forced to remember that all add up as little 1%ers to just create this little bit of masterpiece, cinematic, delicious goodness that we all want to see on YouTube. Okay, so now I touched on this before, but keeping yourself in the correct frame when you're alone is genuinely very difficult to do because you don't always know whether you're sitting in the right spot, standing too close, sitting too far away, and that everything is actually complementing you as the subject. And sometimes things change so fast or there's someone in the way or something's happening, you can't actually go back and get that shot again. So filming solo, it is crucial that you try and get the frame the first time, every time, as often as you can. Okay, now next up I want to talk about something that I know every solo creator, at least initially, struggles with. And that's coming up with things to film. And honestly, I think a lot of this just comes down to being unprepared, which I am guilty of. Because like when I was out shooting this footage, for example, there were just so many moments where I just had no idea what I wanted to film next, like what was going to be around the corner. And I really mean that quite literally. I thought to myself, maybe I should just sit here and film myself doing absolutely nothing. At least I'm getting some type of footage. And then when I got sick of that, I was just trying to film people as they were walking near me and walking away, but people weren't really getting into that. They were getting a bit cranky. And to me, just being honest, I really think this is genuinely one of the hardest things when you're a solo filmmaker, because there's no one to bounce ideas off. And then you end up just doing the same stuff after a while. And to me, it's starting to get a little bit monotonous. But it is definitely something that I'm working on. And I guarantee that there are many of you out there that are in the same boat. You get your camera and you go to head out and you're like, what do I film? It's just one of those challenges. So the takeaway I have from this is just to make sure that I have at least something planned out and maybe have a few places where I know exactly where I want to stand, exactly how I want to be, storyboard it a little bit, because when I do go out and I have some kind of plan, some kind of understanding of where I'm shooting and what I want to shoot, the footage usually comes out really good. But if I just go out and wing it, I would say my hit rate is probably 50% if I'm going to be honest. But again, something I'm very, very much working on. Okay, so aside from the technicalities and the actual filming of things, there is a whole other layer to this that I don't really ever hear anybody else talking about on YouTube. And that is the logistics of doing this on your own. Because every time you go out, you set up, you pack down, it takes time. It takes time to get your lenses, it takes time to carry your tripods around. You know, for this shoot, I took my phone with the tripod as well so I could try and get some BTS stuff, but that was a big fail. So setting up and having your things lying around and making sure that they're not all scattered and in one place, that stuff can take some genuine serious time. So you're not just managing the shot, you're not just managing your exposure or your framing or all these other things, you are trying to manage an entire mini production all whilst you're out on your own. And so something that is definitely going to help me more with all of this, and I'm sure will help many of you guys, is to have more of a systematic approach when we go out to film. Just having a plan, like I mentioned earlier, it would stop a lot of that fiddling around, stop a lot of just trying things for the sake of it. It would also help me have shots that are just ready to go. So I know what lenses I'm going to use, I know what gear I should have with me, and I know what I should be doing at what times. It would make it so much easier. You know, and I'm the guy that loves winging everything, right? I love going out and just filming, like these shots right here. You know, everything turned out easy. There was good lighting, there was lots of interesting things to have in my frames, and these were all done on the fly. And look, I really love these shots, but just relying on that method of just seeing how we go when we get there, I know that based off this experience, I'm going to come unstuck very, very quickly, very, very often. But the reality is, guys, it's just tough filming solo. It really is. And we only ever see people's good footage up on YouTube. We never get to see the mistakes, because it is pretty hard exposing yourself like this on a public platform. It's not something that we like to do. We want to show all of our good work, but this is the honest reality of what it's like filming solo. But look, I'm interested to know if you guys have any of these problems when you go out shooting solo as well. Do you still have sessions like this? Do you have some wins, some losses, some sessions where you go out and it's an absolute dogfight? If so, head over to the Create Daily Discord, the link's below, drop them in there so we can see it. We'd love to check out your work. And I really hope that this video is going to help you on your solo filmmaking journey. If you'd like to see how I set up my YouTube studio for $100, check this video out up here. Otherwise, I'm going to edit this video, and guess what? I'll catch you later.